Good morning. This is Reverend Tony Boehm, and this is Leadership Skills 101. Today we're going to be talking about mutual agreements and why they're important to boards and teams. As you can see on the screen, I have some mutual agreements, such as when you're coming together for a class or as a collective board. Mutual agreements serve great purposes. They outline and they state how we will be together, how we will act together. And this becomes very important if you want a ministry that is truly about, or an organization that is about excellence and accountability. Because when you have mutual agreements in place, you have the capacity now to speak into these and to remind people and to invite people into seeing where they are keeping their agreements or not. When you come onto a board or when you come onto a team, mutual agreements become imperative for use in this way. And as you started at the higher levels of such as board, then trickle it down into team and all aspects of team, and then all teams work for mutual agreements, you start to build a level of accountability within your system. Mutual agreements can be things such as, I will use I statements. I will express my yeses and nos clearly. Because, friends, it's really becoming evident that when people go, yeah, okay, they are not 100% on board. And when you're making decisions that's going to affect a whole system, you need to have clarity. And so one of the agreements is we will use our yeses and nos clearly so that we know from a quantum perspective that we are imprinting upon the energetic field with clarity and intentionality. I will be present, thus I agree to turn off my phone, place it on vibrate, and not text. This becomes very important in today's world because when people are constantly checking their phones, checking their messages, they're not present. They're not present in the space. They're not present to what's happening in the energetic field that's working to be created. I will respect time frames. Now, the one I have up here is when I do classes, but I will respect time frames set by the group. That means that if we start at 7, it's not okay to show up at 7:15. It's not okay to go on what we call, well, I just run on unity time. Friends, that is a construct that has been created and placed in mind as a belief. And we can reorganize our constructs to bring more accountability into our awareness. So I will respect timeframes, meaning that if I'm going to be late, I'll let the board president know, I'll let the team lead know. If I cannot come, I will find somebody to replace myself if I'm on a team, if that's part of your mutual agreements. I will speak to the discomforts in the boardroom or in the team, not in the parking lot or in the break rooms, because when you do that, you are doing what is called triangulating. So always have an agreement that you will speak to whatever is your discomfort in the room, because this is how you build trust on a team. First of all, is having that capacity to speak your truth in the space versus speaking it to somebody else. And another agreement that's really important, speaking of this one, is that I will communicate directly to the person that I have any issues with. Becomes very important. The next agreements is I am willing to grow and express spiritually as a mature individual, meaning I don't throw temper tantrums, I don't get angry, I don't go talk to other people as we just talked about. I accept that each person's experience is real for them. I may not agree with what you're saying, but I give you the space to believe what you believe. And then we can discuss so we can come to some mutual space of agreement. I am willing to negotiate. Friends, if you come into a board or a team without the capacity to negotiate, you are really oriented towards me, and my agenda. And teams do not work well in that perspective. Another one is I agree to collectively represent the whole, especially if you are elected to a board or a position. Your job is to collectively support the whole and represent the whole, the greater good of all, not your own agenda. And again, it goes back to the other one. I agree to consensus, or to speak my truth now. Another one that I add when I'm talking about boards and systems that do budgets is where there's any type of decision-making capacity, is I invite this group to create a mutual agreement of what does collective agreement mean. Is it 51% vote? Is it a 66% vote? Is it 75%? It doesn't matter to me what it is. But when you have clarity, because this is what agreements do, they bring clarity to the space so they can be spoken to. When you have clarity around decision-making capacity, you know when a decision is made. I've heard people walk out of a boardroom saying, oh, I didn't know we really had made that decision. Well, when you have that agreement of what is your decision-making capacity measurable, then you have that clarity. So what purpose do mutual agreements make? Why is it that I'm speaking into this? Because they become very important. First, when they are not kept, it's just a context. The first time it happens, such as I was doing a large class and we had the agreement about the phones. Turn off your phones, put them on vibrate. The first time it happens, it's a context. But the second time it happens, you can be sure that it's a pattern. So in one of the meetings, very close to break time, somebody's phone rang and she answered it. Hello, I can't talk to you, and then hung up. Right before break, it happened again, and she answered it again. Now, friends, that's a pattern. The third time it happens, it affects relationships. And when it affects relationships, what that means is, if you can do it, I might as well do it. If you can be 15 minutes late, I know the meeting's not going to start, so I might as well be 15 minutes late. And then you put everything starts to get behind. And we are in a time, friends, a new paradigm of leadership, the new level of relationship where integrity and clarity and transparency and accountability are starting to be prime areas that people are looking at when they're deciding whether they want to engage with a system or not. So what happened with that person who had not kept their agreements, when it was break time, I went up to them and because I was the facilitator, I went up to them and I says, what might you notice about the agreements we made and agreements not being kept? Now, did I say you didn't keep that agreement? No, I just asked what they might notice about an agreement that was not being kept. And immediately the person said, I had my phone on. And I said, yes. And I said, so what might you do about it? And the person says, I will speak to the group. So when they spoke to the group, when we reconvened, they apologized. And interestingly enough, the group said, we accept your apology, and that's not enough. How are you going to be accountable? Meaning, what action are you going to take to rectify this? Because, friends, apology is not good enough. Apology without behavioral action of change means that the behavior will continue. So, this is part of why mutual agreements become very important to teams and groups. If you have any questions, please contact me at TonyBoehm.com, TonyBoehm.com. There's a place for you to contact me, to write me an email. I would be happy to speak more to you about the effects of mutual agreements not being honored, and to do any type of leadership training for your community, your system, your ministry. Have a great day. And remember, mutual agreements are important at all levels of system.